and welcome to this edition of Meet America. And tonight we're going to be talking about smart meters that are going into all of your homes, whether you like it or not, and their potential health effects on you, and what you can do about it if you feel that these smart meters are affecting your health. We also have with us today two guests. Our first is Nina Beatty. And I want to welcome you, Nina. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. I've been educating the public recently about the health and environmental impacts from wireless technology, this real dark side of the wireless revolution. And smart meters are part of this wireless movement with a real potential for horrendous health and environmental impacts.
Okay, and then we also have Claudia.
My name is Claudia Salit, and I became aware of smart meters 2 weeks ago when a good friend gave me the information. I called PG&E, who totally denies there is any side effect, and I read in my information that you have electromagnetic radiation 24/7, and I am very allergic to that. That's why I'm here today.
Okay, and then on the phone we also have with us Tammy. Tammy is an extremely concerned citizen. We'll start with you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us how you became involved with this issue?
I became aware of the smart meters last November. I'm always trying to be on the lookout for any new microwave radio frequency radiation to kind of prevent it anymore from the area since it's so saturated. And in January 15th, our well went out, which blew out the circuit breaker, so I had to call PG&E to come out to turn off the main electrical, to get a new panel on. And when they came out, I was not home. I did not know they put a smart meter on. I left, felt like the peak of health, came home, walked in the house, and had the worst pressure in my ears, my head, my heartbeat was really fast, my brain got speeded up. My whole body started hurting. It was the worst I've ever felt. I am electrically sensitive, but this is the worst form of microwave radiation that I had ever came in contact with. So I knew that we were set to get them in July. I was shocked to find out I got one in January. They told me I was the only one at that time in the county that had one, and at that time I was able to get it off with very frantic phone calls. They said in July I'll have no choice, but since I wasn't set to deployment until July, all my symptoms went away as soon as they took it off. I had to go out of town when they first put it on. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even be in the house. It was so horrific. And I'm just, doing all I can with, with petitions and going to the board. I feel like we have to act quickly because they're actually starting the deployment very early. They have them in some parks already and movie theaters and other places around town. So it's pretty scary stuff, believe me.
Well, I've been talking about this issue with everyone about how our rights are being just eradicated right before our very eyes. And this is just another example of how the wireless, telephone communications industry, they're all coupled together. And they're planning to make the whole world wireless. And if you think you aren't sensitive to a wireless technology, you're wrong. What it does is it affects the weakest part of your body. So if you are a person who is subjected to aneurysms, let's say, weak veins, heart attacks, that's what you're going to get. And for me, it was my hearing, and I had a wireless phone that I used very, very carefully. I had a 20-foot long cable that I used, thinking that it could get me out of the plume. I used all kinds of little devices that are supposed to take the radiation effects away. And I started having these terrible noises in my ear. And also my memory started getting affected. And I thought, well, either it's old age or it's the wireless, because luckily a friend of mine said, gave me this information again, even though I knew about it. And so I said, well, I'll just not use my cell phone for a few weeks, and the symptoms, went away, and the memory's just coming back. And so I only use my cell phone now for absolute emergencies. And if everyone did that, then the telephones communication industry would not be able to be rich. And we're going to have to go solar, folks. That's what we're going to have to do. And PG is not going to like that at all, are they? So, you know, we always have our ways. The American people will not be controlled. We will not be told that we have to die because of their technology. And that's what this is about. So I hope all of you out there are going to get as mad as I am, and you, my guests are, and you, Tammy. I'm just furious about this, you know. Why don't you explain a little bit?
There are many problems with these meters. They are, of course, the health impacts from microwave and radio frequency radiation. Some of these health impacts have been known for decades. When radar workers first became ill, when radar installations went in, there were conferences at the federal level on the electrosmog, the electromagnetic radiation, radio frequency in particular, but microwave radiation, and already the levels were building up in society, and they said we may have a problem, particularly if there's DNA damage. There was a report issued. It was, I believe, a congressional committee, but it was mandated by the president. Then we switched to the 90s and the Telecommunications Act of 1996, and we were forbidden, the local municipalities were forbidden to be able to mention health impacts from cell towers. There was no limitation to as far as the installation of these cell towers in a county or a city could not say, well, there are radio frequency impacts or microwave impacts. They were not allowed to bring those into consideration. So the switch appears to be commercially driven from a note of concern on the part of our government to one of denial. The FCC safety standards do not cover health impacts from long-term exposure, they only address thermal impacts, which would be, and short-term impacts from radio frequency microwave radiation. They don't address the biological impacts, which happen at a far lower level than our safety standards apply to. And other countries are beginning to lower their safety standards because they realize they're completely inaccurate and inadequate to protect their citizens. So this is one thing that the historical information on the background on microwave radiation and radio frequency radiation is real important. As you begin to understand that, you realize that this trend towards creating wireless devices everywhere, from our telephones to baby monitors to our smart meters, is very, very dangerous for the health of our citizens. Overseas, there's much more awareness of this. The media tends to report it more. Scientists, scientific communities are increasingly warning people, particularly the impacts to vulnerable populations like children. A Russian national scientific community put out a warning a year or so ago, and they said that the health of our young people, their futures, is terribly at stake. And about 4 months later, they put out another alert and said, the international community has been silent. Did they not listen to our warning? And apparently the answer is, by and large, no. The European Parliament, though, has repeatedly and with greater urgency been putting forth resolutions to lower safety standards and to bring them more into accord with the impacts. But there may be no safe exposure limit for these are artificial frequencies, microwave radiation and the artificial electromagnetic fields. Our bodies and the bodies of other creatures as well, and the environment, the trees, plants, insects, we're not geared to deal with these artificial microwave radiations because they pulse. And with these smart meters, they will be radiating radio frequency and microwave radiation around the clock from both meters, electrical meters and gas meters. I could obviously go on and on, but I think that maybe some of our other speakers want to talk addition, and I can put in more information. The health impacts are not the only issues regarding these meters. There are reliability issues. There are privacy issues. For this network to work, it's mandated. It's a federally mandated program from the Smart Grid And for it to work according to what they want to do, you will have to have appliances, either retrofitted or new appliances with radio frequency transmitters in them that will be transmitting data to the meter on how often and how long you use various appliances in your house, which means the utility company will have access to that information. There are hacking issues and burglary issues. If someone can hack into the network and find out that, gee, you have been running your dryer for a week, or you haven't been running the oven, I wonder if you're home. I wonder if there's anyone home, as well as anyone who wants to alter your billing. A lot of this stuff, the meters are going to be wirelessly transmitting data, and that data is vulnerable. There have been concerns in the national media about how this could be, the national grid could become much more vulnerable to attack. So there's billing issues. People in Fresno and Bakersfield, I think all you have to do is go down to those areas and mention smart meters, and you'll get people up in arms, because the billing, people have had astronomically high bills that with no increase in their rates. And there's reports of at least one meter blowing up and various meters catching fire because there's some problem with the reliability of some of the meters. There are many different makes and models, and so of course this doesn't apply to all the meters across the board as far as the reliability. But the Utility Reform Network has been calling for a moratorium on these meters because of all the complaints. PG&E has finally admitted that they've had over 43,000 problems with these meters. Previously they were saying there were none. This is the state Senate Majority Leader is calling for a moratorium on the meters.
Good for him. Who's this?
Dean Flores.
Good for
and
him.
He's created a committee to investigate them, and that is happening now.
Good.
So those of us who are alarmed about this development from many different standpoints need to, and I will talk later about various actions we can take on to confront these meters and hopefully create smart meter free zones.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you for your work on that. Really, that's just so very, very important, Nina. And Claudia, why don't you tell the audience your experience with the PUC and...
I called PUC about a week ago. At the time, nobody would talk to me. Then I talked to a gentleman called Chris yesterday, and he says, PUC are allowing PG&E to install the smart meter. So I was really, really angry about this. I asked him, what is it about, what about our health? And he was aware of it. I could tell that he was aware of it, but they do not say anything. Then I called turn.org, and
You called who?
turn.org.
Turn.org. It's an organization, right?
Yes, and that's against the smart meter, but I haven't received an answer yet. They haven't called me back. But I have been giving the information to all my friends, my clients, my neighbors. Everywhere I go, I have flyers and I give it to them.
Now, your neighbors in the beginning weren't listening to you, but
No,
now they're starting
they are
to.
listening now.
Why are they listening now?
Well, they read it a little more seriously, probably, and then I have a big mouth. I talk a lot. And I tell my friends, please read it. Please read it. I go somewhere, I have breakfast, I give them your page, Nina. I give them that. And I say, please take the time to read it. So we have to stop them. I talk to PG&E and I say, we are going to stop you. You are not going to endanger our health. I am so allergic to electromagnetic. I mean, my ears start buzzing and I feel horrendous. There's no way we have to allow it. No way.
Absolutely. You know, I've given a few talks about cell phones in the past, and it's really the fault of the American people. So many, and particularly environmentalists. I'm shocked at how many environmentalists sit in cafes with their laptops you know, irradiating everybody, endangering everybody with these electromagnetic rays, which is, it's very powerful, the laptops are, and more powerful than the cell phones. And, you know, and then everyone's using their cell phones, and it's because we're lonely. I really think it's because people are so lonely, they want to have this connection that someone's going to call them. You know, someone's caring about them and calling and how are you and I love you and all this wasteful conversation that's going on that's damaging their brains, the brains of their loved one. You know, it's really amazing to me, this sort of outpour. And we have to get aware, folks, you know. I mean, I loved my cell phone as much as anyone. I live on a houseboat. I still have my cell phone, but I only buy $15 worth a month, and I speak on it no more than an hour. And it's really tempting to get on there, but I know what it's doing to me.
That's the problem. A doctor friend of mine recently said that I was lucky because I was sensitive to the microwave radiation, the radio frequency radiation. He said, what you are aware of, what you feel, you can avoid. But if you don't feel it, it's hard to make that jump and say it's invisible, it's tasteless, it's smellless. It certainly exists because we use these devices, but it's very difficult, especially if we become used to these devices. They're very convenient, and there has been no one publicly, and very rare reports until recently in the media about the health impacts of these devices. And so people have listened to the advertising. You want to have a friends and family plan, absolutely, because I want to be close to my friends and family. You know, all these different marketing things that, ooh, this is wonderful, and Wi-Fi, I can connect to the internet all the time. But there's been very little discussed about health impacts, and people that have attempted to bring forth the science, the really hard science on this, have been discredited and written off, and as you know, a variety of names called to them as being anti-technology. And I remember the day I got my first cell phone, and I was very, very proud and felt very, you know, like, great, this is going to help me a lot. And what I found was the research showing increasingly that DNA damage happens from this radiation, blood-brain barrier damage, disruption within 2 minutes on a cell phone. With 2 hours on a cell phone, you have permanent damage to your blood-brain barrier, which filters out the toxins. It keeps blood from entering your brain. There's a type of stroke that's called lacunar strokes, and it's from blood entering your brain, and they haven't understood how this happens. It used to be rare. I don't think it's a rare stroke any longer. The cancers, the increased risk of cancer, and unfortunately we don't have immediate feedback, especially people that aren't sensitive. So there are latency periods to some of these illnesses, yet there are increasingly known links with Alzheimer's, and with certainly a recent study from Sweden came out showing that people who use a cell phone before the age of 20 have over a 5 times risk of developing a brain tumor. And the risk is nearly as high for using a cordless phone because it uses the same radio frequency microwave radiation. So this is, and people don't know. They just don't know. And environmentalists and other activists, I think, have been using these devices to do their work, and yet they also have been a part of this ignorance that has been colluded with by our government, and it's been individuals, it's been scientists and individuals who are sensitive that I think have been trying to bring this information out to the public, including with the smart meters. This is just another layer, and it's not just one layer. This is so massive, what it's planning to do. For instance, if you have a smart meter on your house, and you will have 2 if you have natural gas and electricity, if the meter cannot see the central data collecting station, which will be on a light pole or will be an electrical pole, it will then repeat off the neighbor's meter. And in a worst case scenario, they said, in extreme instances where meters cannot see that information data collecting, a meter could be firing 50% of the time with these signals. That's out of every hour, 30 minutes of that hour would be signaling. PG&E has not responded to questions about the strength of those signals. They may be extremely brief, but they have not said what's the maximum signal strength, which could be quite strong. And they may not even know. There have been questions asked of PG&E, and they have not come up with any answers yet. And there's a question of whether PG&E actually has that information, which is very concerning to the public, should be extremely concerning to the public, that their technical people may not even know that the health and safety data have access to that information. The PUC, and I believe Senator Flores has called for an independent assessment, which I believe is happening now. I'm not quite sure about that, of these meters. And whether we'll get any good information from that, I'm not sure, because this may be a contractor that has worked with the electrical companies. It really needs to be someone completely independent that can give us good information about what these meters emit. But from Tammy's experience and from other people's experience, people are have the potential for great health impacts from these, particularly since some of these meters have a range of up to 2 miles. So that means every meter, even if you opt out, if your neighbor doesn't opt out, you have the potential of this field that you're going to be in, not only from the meters that are within a 2-mile radius of where you live, where you work. If you're an apartment building and you live on the side of the building that has all the meters on it, think of the impacts being close to all those meters radiating. This is just unbelievable amount of electrosmog that we're going to be exposed to, with not just impacting us, impacting our pets, impacting the animals and the wildlife, particularly impacting children. I know with cell phones and microwave radiation, they found that the children are much more sensitive and vulnerable to this, partially with cell phones in particular, because of their smaller, softer, thinner cranium bones. So the radiation, for instance, for a cell phone goes in much further. But the microwave radiation and radio frequency from these devices will be impacting them as well. They're developing systems. They're developing nervous systems. The impacts on fetuses. Already they've seen impacts from mothers who have cell phones. But how can we avoid radio frequency and microwave radiation these days? We're bathed in it. And this will create incredibly increased amounts of layers of this substance, because it is a substance.
Well, you mentioned, what are the effects that the fetuses on fetuses?
Well, one thing they found is that, well, before fetus, let's jump to a little bit before, they found that male fertility, that effects on particularly males. They have not done the testing on women, but on men there's been fertility drops, sperm counts decreased, sperm sometimes moving aimlessly around, not, you know, when you need to fertilize an egg, it needs to be directed, and they found them, they need to be able to sense their environment. And with these, the confusion with microwave radiation is it pulses. And our cells aren't built to deal with this constantly changing field. The Earth's magnetic field is a constant, whereas the microwave radiation is very confusing. It's one reason that sudden hive collapse may be related to the increase of hive collapse, the bees, the decline of bees.
Right.
They cannot sense the background radiation of the Earth, which they need to navigate. Birds the same way. And so there's that's one of the issues with male fertility. With fetuses, they found that children, and they haven't, again, the studies, we need to do a lot more studies on this, but I think we already know some of the issues and need to have a moratorium on these wireless devices in the meantime. But children that were born of mothers who use cell phones, they had more behavioral problems, and they had, there were other issues when they went to school. And so it's tantalizing research that needs to be more. The DNA damage is one of the things that they're very concerned about, because if DNA in a cell, if it, they haven't known the mechanisms, and now they're beginning to figure out how this DNA damage happens. But if a cell dies after its DNA is damaged, that's good. But if a cell, an egg, for instance, its DNA is damaged and it continues, then that damage is replicated for ongoing generations. There may be the drop in fertility rates in women may be due to the electromagnetic frequency, radio frequency, and the microwave radiation that they're increasingly being exposed to.
And also the diseases. You know, I really believe that, you know, all these, for instance, there's a new bacteria now found in community hospital. I talked to a woman, her son broke his arm, went into the hospital, and it's called Gram negative, and it's the flesh-eating disease, but it's the even worse. And so these diseases that are coming on, and our bodies just don't have the immune ability anymore because it's being bombarded on so many levels, from too much antibiotic exposure from the meat we eat, and also from going to the doctor and taking, you know, antibiotics every time we get a cold, and all these, you know, these immune disorders that are happening are affecting us on every level.
Well, they found that the cells go into a stress response when they're exposed to microwave radiation, and they go, there's a number of impacts that happen at the cellular level. Decreased immune function, decreased melatonin production, which affects sleep. So there's just a variety of, there are so many health impacts from this, and then this technology, these smart meters, use that same frequency, and it can be very low amounts that can cause biological impacts. That's a frightening thing. They say these meters only emit so much power. Our bodies are extremely sensitive.
Absolutely. And then you have these scientists that are saying, well, you get all this electromagnetic fields from the universe itself, but we've evolved with that.
Correct.
We haven't evolved long enough with all the new wireless technology that's coming online. And it's in every cafe. It's all around us. Every time a person makes a cell phone, that plume is being created from the tower to that person's cell phone. We're all bathed in it, like you say. And now it's going to be in our homes, you know.
Right.
And I mean, it's already in our homes, but it's going to be even doubled and tripled. And they're planning to make the whole world wireless, and we're all helping them by using our wireless technology like little kids with candy. And once again, we have to be aware of what we're doing, and we have to be the leaders. We have to be the ones that say, no, if you're not going to give us a tried and true technology, we're not going to
There are
do
wired
this.
alternatives. The smart meters can be wired. There's nothing in the federal mandate that says it has to be wireless. But there are actions that people need to take if they're concerned about this. There is no opt-out program at this point, but that doesn't mean we can't opt out and express that to the California Public Utilities Commission. There is on the EMF Safety Network website, which is a fount of information. It's been shown on your screen, emfsafetynetwork.org. There's petitions on there. We'll be starting one for Monterey County. There are signs that you can copy off the website and post on your meter saying that you revoke permission to have these meters installed, and join the call to create a moratorium on these meters in our communities and in our state, and hopefully nationally. Thursday, May 3rd.
To PG&E that you don't want these meters, and that you're revoking permission to put them in, and go to the meetings. And thank you so much for watching this program. Good night, everyone.